You know, it's a big episode when I have to put on my nicest shirt in a podcast recording because we have the biggest guest this podcast has had in a long, long while. Walang sinabi yung ibang guest ko dito sa guest na to. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Atty. Chel Diokno, welcome to the Class Clown Podcast.
Hi, Chino, and hi to everyone watching. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir, sa accept ng invitation ko. No? Alam kong madami kayong ginagawa. No? So can you give me a brief glimpse into what a day is like for you now? Dahil nga campaign season na and syempre madami kayong kalaban dyan, di ba? So how do you get through your day?
Grabe ang schedule ko. Kung buklatin mo yung aking calendar, from day to day, I usually have 7, 8, sometimes even 10 events. Mabuti na lang, most of them are online. Kaya wala akong issue sa travel time. Pero nakakapagod din yung kaharap mo yung computer o yung phone mo. And of course, pag ikaw ay tagapagsalita, it is added pressure. But I'm kind of used to it because I've been doing this for several months already, kaya medyo nakapag-adjust naman tayo.
Oo, kasi sir, yung last time yung mag-campaign, di ba? In person pa yun eh. Di ba?
Yes.
Oo. Tapos ito, ngayon lahat Zoom na. Nakaupo ka na lang the whole day as opposed to nakaupo ka sa traffic the whole day, di ba? Oh.
Well,
so
at least, mas marami kang ma-attendan ng mga event. Ganito. Kasi dati, hirap-hirap noon. Nung super traffic tayo noon.
Yes, tama, di ba? So at least kahit paano may konting relief naman tayo dito. So kayo, sir, okay. Hindi ko na banggit sa inyo to before we started, but I actually am friends with your son, si Pepe. We both went to the same high school together.
Yeah.
And pareho kaming into film. So naisip ko din, sir, na it was a little shocking yung sinabi sa akin na anak niyo siya. Di ba? Because I would have expected na yung tatay niya would be into the arts field as well. Diba? So, hindi nyo ba naisip? Pero ngayon, nakikita nyo, sir, diba? Nasa TikTok na kayo. And may following kayo sa TikTok. So, what inspired you to get into that?
Well, first of all, although I'm not in the arts, actually, my kids all grew up in a environment where I love music and I love cultural things. Kaya that maybe was what helped to form him into a film director. But yung ginagawa ko on a daily basis is really something that has to be creative, even as a lawyer. Kaya kahit na medyo iba at seryoso yung field ko, tingin ko there are so many connections between what we do.
Right. So, yun, ang ganda ng sinabi niyo, sir, creativity as a lawyer. Kasi hindi yan yung unang pumapasok sa isip ng mga tao when they say law, di ba? Usually, it's all frumpy and serious and sumisigaw kayo ng objection, Your Honor, di ba? So, paki-explain naman sa mga listeners natin kung ano yung ibig sabihin mo by creativity in law?
Well, first of all, in coming up with arguments, kasi ang trabaho ng lawyer really is to persuade. And when you appear, let's say, before a judge, yung mga judge, sanay na yan. They're sick and tired of hearing the same arguments from the mouths of lawyers. So if you want your case to stand out, you have to find a way to make it different. You have to find a way to really appeal to the imagination of the judge. At as a lawyer who's been in the practice for 3 decades already, challenge sa akin yon. That's also how I keep, excited about the profession. Because for me, it's really a question of how well can you communicate a message so that people will understand and be persuaded by it.
Right. So yung lessons ba na to, sir, napapass ka din sa students nyo? Kasi professor din kayo, di ba?
Yun, actually, as an educator, I try to imbibe that in my students as well. Na yung law, hindi lang yan yung pag-aaral ng batas, hindi lang yan yung pagsusulat ng mga kahaba-habang mga dokumento. it's really all about advocacy and persuasion, and they shouldn't forget that.
Right, right. So, yung napapansin ko din, sir, na malapit talaga kayo sa youth. Diba? Kaya yung number one choice ng youth ngayon in terms, lalo na ngayon, may TikTok kayo, like you mentioned in the start of the program here. So, ang interesting lang kasi what draws you, first of all, to the youth sa kabataan? Is it because of your history as a professor? Is it because malapit ka talaga sa younger generation?
I really don't know. And it's actually the reverse. During the 2019 campaign, we began to notice that they felt really connected with me. And that's why sometime in the middle of the campaign, bigla ko naririnig yung word na woke lolo. Hindi ko pa naintindihan noon. I had to ask one of my kids. Sabi ko sa daughter ko, Ines, ano bang ibig sabihin yan? And when she explained it to me, I said, well, that means that somehow my message is getting across. And perhaps it's also the fact that I have always, even with my own children, I never talked down to them. Kahit nung maliliit sila, I treated them on the same level. We're not the father-son, yung parang paternalistic type or father-daughter. And maybe that's yun ang dating ko rin siguro sa kanila. Kaya they feel very open to me and I am also very open to them.
Right, right. That's actually very well said na you are able to treat the young as people on your level, as adults in the sense, di ba? Kasi yan yung isa sa mga hinihingi ng mga youth ngayon. So, with that said, yung appeal mo sa kabataan, sir, how do you feel about that? Ano na feel mo na ginagawan ka ng fan art na dinuduwat yung videos mo? Ano yung feel nyo about that?
It's very energizing. It's really enervating, and it's quite inspiring. I draw so much of their power, and I sense so much from them. And that has also led me to study our history. Kasi nung lumabas nga yung support na nanggagaling sa kabataan, naisip ko rin ano bang naging role ng youth sa ating kasaysayan? And I realized that ever since, even from the time of the Spanish period up to now, the youth have always been at the forefront of our country in terms of pushing for our nation and for our freedoms. And even in this pandemic, I've seen the same na, ang kabataan talaga yung unang nanindigan at unang nagsabi na sandali lang, we need to call you out because this is not right what's happening.
Right. Actually, tama din kayo, sir, in saying that kasi, di ba, yung revolution ngayon, nasa digital platform na di ba? Ang dami nang nag-share, nag-tweet, nag-like, nag-post, di ba? And all those things. So, yung landscape kasi ng digital media and social media in a way, parang intimidating yan for, di ko naman sasabihin, people of your generation, di ba? Pero totoo naman, di ba? Kaya sa inyo nanggaling yun, sir. So, kayo ba, sir, nung pumasok kayo dyan sa field na yan, na-intimidate din ba kayo? Or you just took it as a challenge?
I wasn't sure really what would happen and whether it would work or not. Pero nung nag-usap nga kami ni Pepe, tinatanong niya ako, sabi ko, oh, why not? Sabi ko, I'm open to trying anything. A lot of people don't know that I was actually a voice talent in one of the advertisements of the Buy Bust movie.
Okay,
yung trailer.
Wow. Yes.
Yung trailer, yes. And when people saw the ad and the trailer and heard my voice, hindi nila na-connect na ako pala yun. It's only later when I talked about it that people said, ikaw pala yung voice talent doon. And that came about really as almost spontaneously. Because one of the guys who was involved in the sound production of that movie, it so happened I had the meeting with him. We were talking about something else. And after the meeting, he said, may ginagawa ka ba ngayon? Sabi ko, wala naman. Sumama ka sa akin, pumunta tayo sa studio. Sabi ko, anong gagawin natin sa studio? Basta i-record kita, gusto ko yung boses mo. Sabi ko, hindi ako marunong yan. And he said, no, just come with me. Sabi niya ganun. And we'll do something and just try it. So ako naman, sige, subukan natin. We go to the sound studio and he hands me a piece of paper. Nung binasa ko, malalim na Tagalog. Sabi ko, pare, hindi ko kaya to. Hindi ako sanay. Hindi, sabi niya, practicein mo lang ng konti yan. We can do a number of takes and kaya mo yan. So, despite my, hesitance, my reluctance, sige, let's try. So, I rehearsed it a few times and after a few takes, he said, okay, we're done. Sabi ko, are you sure? Yeah, sabi niya, okay na to. I like how you delivered it. And that's how I got to become part of a trailer.
So, tama din pala yung sinabi niyo na you grew up in you were raised in a very artistic background. Kasi, diba, tignan nyo, may celebrity status na din pala kayo, sir. Part kayo ng Eric Matty movie, diba?
Ako, mas proud pa nga ako niyan kaysa sa ibang mga naging sinasabi nila achievements ko eh.
So from your achievements, diba, like ngayon, diba, kasama kayo sa Bybus, hindi naman natin ma-avoid na madami kayong detractors, diba, tulad ng nakikita natin sa social media. Ang daming nag-point out ng everything from your career to yung ngipin nyo and everything in between. Mabusisi kasi internet yan, di ba? Lahat uungkatin. So kayo, sir, how do you handle that? Yung hate na binabato in your direction?
I really don't give it much of my time or attention. Kasi that kind of energy isn't worth devoting some attention to. Makakain ka niyan kung talagang nag-engage ka. Kaya ako, ang feeling ko dyan, you wanna be that way, you wanna put your whole soul into being a hater, that's your problem. That's not my problem. At hindi ko gagawing problema yan. Kaya, to me, it really doesn't affect me. And yung ibang mga bashing, trolling, I don't even bother reading it. Bahala kayo sa buhay nyo. Ganun na attitude ko.
It's actually a very good point kasi isa yan sa lessons ng internet, never read the comments. And kayo, tutunan nyo agad yun. So advanced na kayo sa internet etiquette, kumbaga. Pero, sir, di ba, nabanggit na natin yung TikTok account nyo. Your videos have recently gone viral, especially yung video nyo reacting to, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said. Yung pinapagalitan niya yung mga healthcare workers natin, di ba? And I'm sure when I say viral, I mean madami kayong detractors na nakuha from the other side of the, sabihin nating aisle, di ba? So, pagka ganun ba, sir, hindi ba kayo natatakot to criticize yung government natin? And what makes you so passionate about doing that?
Well, I've been a human rights lawyer for 3 decades. And in that span of time, I've had my fair share of threats and other forms of harassment. Kaya, it's, let's sabihin na lang natin, sanay na ako dyan. It's nothing new. Of course, I take the necessary precautions. It's become a part of my routine to be aware of everything and to, be alert. But it doesn't bother me at all.
Right. So, now, nabanggit na natin ilang beses your background as a human rights lawyer. Now, you're running, again, for the second time as a senator. Diba? Yung first time, unfortunately, hindi kayo pinalad. So, what's making you run again this time around?
Feeling ko kasi there's unfinished business and it really has a lot to do with my advocacy for justice and for human rights. I cannot abide by the thought that my kids and other young Filipinos are going to grow up in a country where justice is so elusive and where the basic dignity of every person is not respected, especially by those in government. Dapat baliktad Dapat ang manguna nga sa paggagalang sa dignidad ng lahat ay, di ba, ang ating pamahalaan. Kaya I cannot accept that that's happening. And, I say this often, that the one thing that we lack in our country is justice. What is holding us back? we have such talented people. Ang gagaling ng mga Pinoy. Science, you talk about science, you talk about arts, you talk about professions. We have some of the best in the world. We have all the resources in our country. Ang ganda ng biodiversity natin, natural resources, nandyan lahat yan. So what is holding us back? How come we cannot be like other countries? You know what's holding us back? The lack of justice in the country. Because how can you ever address corruption? How can you ever address syndicates, organized crime, smuggling, drugs, etc., kung hindi naman maayos ang justice system mo? And to me, that's the key. We want to have real development, sustainable development in our country. We need to fix our justice system.
Right. Very well said, sir. Kasi nga, with your experience as a lawyer, syempre, alam nyo na kailangan talagang maayos yung judicial system dito sa Pilipinas. No? But my question for you now is that something that can only be done as a senator? Like, may iba pa bang ways to do that? Or is this the ultimate way na masusolusyonan nyo yung problema na hinaharap nyo?
Actually, matagal ko nang ipinaglalaban yan sa ibang arena, sa arena ng courtroom. But umabot na ako sa punto na sabi ko, hindi natin maaayos itong problema kung sa loob lang ng hukuman tayo lalaban. You need to have political power to strengthen the justice system because the flaws in the system are systemic. For example, we all complain, bakit ang sobrang bagal ang kaso dito sa atin? But many people don't know that one of the real reasons why it's so long is because we have vacancies in kulang tayo ng judge, kulang tayo ng prosecutor. If our justice system was a hospital and it lacked doctors and it lacked nurses, every day you have new patients coming in, aabot sa punto yan na hindi nila makakayanan magbigay ng serbisyo sa lahat. At yun ang nangyayari sa ating sistema ng justisya. So we have to address that. But you see, this is the problem, Chino. Our politicians aren't even talking about it. It's not even part of their agenda. And when I ask myself, bakit ba? Bakit ba ayaw nilang ayusin ng system ang justisya dito sa atin? Nung ko na-realize, dalawang dahilan tingin ko. Unang-una, ayaw nila ng pananagutan. Kasi baka sila pang maunang maparusahan pag magandang takbo ng justice. Pangalawa, justice is all about empowerment. When a court recognizes the rights of a fisher folk, of an indigenous person, of someone who's having problems of victims of abuse, you are empowering those people. And our politicians don't want that because they want all the power to themselves. They don't want the power to be given to the people.
Wow. Okay, ang dami yung sinabi doon, sir. And forgive me if I take time to unpack all of that, no? Kasi yung workload ng senator, I have no idea what it is kasi hindi naman ako senator. Pero kayo, sir, parang dun sa sinabi nyo, parang handang-handa na kayo i-take on yung role na yan sa Senate, di ba? Na willing na kayong pumasok dyan and take your spot as one of the lawmakers of this country. Pero sir, ang question ko sa inyo is, are you really ready to enter that political arena? Na parang makikipag-away ka with other senators, paglalaban mo yung kaso mo, matitili ka, uungkatin nila yung buhay mo, and all that. Is that really something you've prepared yourself for?
Yes, and I think I have the background for it because it's very similar to the work I've been doing all this time. You enter a courtroom, ang dami mo rin makakaaway dyan. Hindi lang yung kalaban mo, minsan pati judge, inaaway nyo, di ba? And you have to protect your client's interests. In the case of a senator, yung kliyente niya ay hindi na mga individual na tao, yung mismong taong bayan na, yung sambayanan na yung pinag-usapan natin. And to me, that is a greater responsibility, but I'm really eager for that challenge because I think it's time that we push these advocacies that have been ignored by most of the leaders of our country.
So, sir, kayo, you strike me as somebody who likes to take challenges on talaga eh, di ba? Parang willing kayong mag-overcome ng any obstacle in your life, di ba? From your political career, from your tenure as a professor, to now running for Senate again, the second time. No? So, ano yung end goal nito? Is there like, is the Senate your last stop here kung manalo man kayo? Or are you reaching for a higher post?
Ako, wala akong ambisyon na o pangarap na maging any high political figure really. Siguro kung meron akong ganun na sa kalooban ko, matagal na akong kumandidato noon pa. The reason really why I decided to throw my hat into the political arena was the fact that, how can someone complain about the quality of those who are in power without being able to put yourself on the line as well. And kaya sabi ko, sige, kesa sa magrereklamo ako ng ganito, let me see what I can do. I'm very willing to contribute to building our nation. And it's up to the electorate if they will vote for me or not.
Right. Ang sinabi niyo, sir, also reminds me a lot of your familial background, di ba? Yung family mo. Kasi, sir, your father was also a political figure, di ba? Public figure as well. So, naka-inspire ba yon sa desire niyo to run for public office?
Yes, my dad has always been my role model, and my mom. Talagang I really learned so much from them. But the career paths of my father and my own path, the trajectory has parang been opposite. Because my dad was first a senator, and then later he turned his back on politics and became a human rights lawyer. He gave the last maybe 15 years of his life to helping victims of human rights violations. On the other hand, I began my career as a human rights defender. That's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. And it's only now that I'm throwing my hat into the political arena. But I think the main reasons for both of us are the same. And it's really a question of service to the people. Maybe it's also because of the fact that parang nasa dugo na namin yung paninindigan at pagmamahal sa inang bayan. And I'm proud to say that because my grandfather, my dad's dad, was also a lawyer for the poor. He was a labor lawyer. He was an educator. He later became a senator too and a justice of the Supreme Court. And his father was a general in the Revolutionary Army that fought with Spain. Kaya ako nga, I'm very proud of that lineage and I hope to carry on that kind of legacy.
Wow, okay. Very, very well said. Kasi alam naman natin na ang Pilipino, diba, nowadays, either boboto sila ng mga names na kilala nila or artistas na nakikita sa ballot or against sila dun sa ganong trend, diba? So it actually strikes me as very refreshing na may ganun kayong approach considering na yung background nyo is actually very well known dito sa ating bansa, no? So, sir, papunta tayo ngayon sa something lighter. No, I actually want to talk about your sense of humor. Natatawa kayo, sir, kasi baka naisip nyo wala. Pero honestly, sir, napapansin ko kasi sa mga TikTok videos nyo, even with the way you present yourself, it's actually very light, diba? And very approachable. Hindi siya very domineering. Kahit sabihin yung lawyer kayo and sabihin nating political candidate kayo. So, saan nanggagaling yung yung approach nyo sa life na gano'n?
Ang hirap naman ng tanong mo. Hindi ko alam kung saan nanggagaling yun. Pero yun talaga yung
ganun lang talaga kayo, sir.
Yeah, and I guess it's also the fact that, I was born and raised in a family that was very progressive. But at the same time, we suffered a lot of trauma. Kasi nung nakulong yung dad ko, halimbawa, nung martial law, I was only 11 years old. And my entire youth was under a dictatorship. I was 11 when the martial law was declared, 25 when the Marcoses had to leave Malacanang. So my entire formation as a young man was in a country where there was no freedom. Ngayon, how did that shape me? Well, because of that, and because of the fact that I tasted injustice at a very young age, it really made me determined to be a fighter like my dad. Alam mo, 13 years old pa lang ako, alam ko na magiging lawyer ako eh. Kaya pag nakikita ko nagbibihis ang airpot ko papuntang court, I would always ask him, Dad, pwede ba ako sumama sa'yo? And whenever he would allow me, I would be so happy. I would carry his bag, wear a polo barong, feeling abogado na rin ako. And that has really been part of who he was my dad was a cool character. He had a different kind of charisma. And he was so composed under pressure. Kahit anong nangyayari, he was like the calm in the center of a storm. And that's the kind of thing that I always wanted to be. So when I was growing up and when I got older, I really tried to do everything I could to learn to be like that.
Right. Thank you, sir, for answering the question. Kahit alam kong medyo convoluted siya nung tinanong ko. But thank you for answering it nonetheless. Na-appreciate yung... Kasi, sir, tong podcast na to has always been dedicated to humor. Being a stand-up comedian myself, it's always been dedicated to humor, di ba? And kayo, sir, parang game na game kayo sa lahat ng podcast guestings nyo from our friends from Machong Chismisan to our friends in Bago Matulog. Ang dami yung sinagot na questions about for everything from porn categories to your teeth, everything in between. So, sir, gusto ko lang malaman, no? Ano yung ano yung pumapasok sa isip nyo pag tinatanong kayo ng ganun? Like, is it something you take seriously? Or nawiweirdohan ba kayo? Or what?
Well, first of all, huwag mo na ako sir. I feel so old. Just Chel or Atty. Chel is fine.
Lasal yan kasi. Parang nakikausap akong prof eh. So, force of habit.
But, well, you know, when I have adopted this attitude of being game for anything. Because, you know, when you enter politics, hindi pwede yung ayoko ng ganito, ayoko ng ganyan. Dapat, that's a decision you made. So, paninindigan mo dapat yon. At kasama doon yung people really want to know about politicians. They want to know about their life, the other side of them. Hindi lang yung pagiging lawyer ko o pagiging teacher ko. And I think they deserve to know more about yung pagkatao ba ng mga kandidato. And that's one of the reasons why I really have adopted this attitude of being open. Kasi sa tingin ko, kailangan natin yun eh. And I believe that they also sense when a politician is being close-minded and when they're open-minded. Yeah.
Right. Ang ganda din nung approach nyo na yun. Kasi nakita natin yan sa TikTok nyo. Diba? Where people ask you any questions. And even kahit yung mga gagong tanong sinasagot nyo eh. Diba? So, how do you feel that you're in this role as the father of the TikTok generation? Na parang ikaw yung tatay ng lahat. Diba? Lahat ng tinatanong nila about legal, sinasagot mo. Lahat ng tinatanong nila about kagaguhan, sinasagot nyo rin.
It's great. It's a nice feeling to be that, to have a presence on TikTok. Nung una nga, hindi ko talaga alam kung ano yung magiging reception nila sa akin. And it's a very fascinating experience. You know, I'm not a techie kind of guy, and although I do a lot of social media, hindi naman ako tulad ng younger generation na from the moment they were born and they had the electronic devices with them. Ako, naalala ko pa, nung estudyante ako, wala pang computer noon. Ang cellphone namin noon, ganun kalaki, ano?
Yeah.
But it's really it's a different kind of experience. I shoot my own TikTok, pero hindi ko siya kayang i-edit. Wala akong background doon. So I have a team, sila Pepe,
Right.
who take care of the editing.
Right. And so yung ideas ba na yun, so sa inyo din nanggagaling or pinipitch sa inyo? Paano ba yung like yung mga
Which one?
Yung mga TikTok videos, kayo din ba nakakaisip ng ideas na yun? Or pinipitch
Yes,
lang ng team?
pinag-usapan namin. Minsan, ako yung may idea, ako nagpipitch. Minsan naman, one of my team will suggest. And then we see how it goes. And we look at it, kung okay ba siya o hindi. And I have a lot of fun actually doing that.
Right, right. So, ngayon, sir, di ba, nandito na tayo sa ating tail end of this interview with Atty. Chel Diokno. No? And may mga tinanong akong questions sa ating mga listeners. And nagbato naman sila ng mga questions. So, I hope you don't mind if I ask some of these to you in the last few minutes of the podcast. So, first question, sir. Has Harry Roque reached out to you? Yes or no?
No. Okay, natanong yan.
Anong sasagot niyo sa kanya kung mag-reach out man siya sa inyo?
Ewan ko ba? I don't ever think he would even try to reach out to me. But if he did, I would just probably tell him, you have to accept responsibility for the decisions you make.
Right. Thank you. Okay, next question, sir. Ito galing lang din sa Instagram. Magpapa-interview ba kayo kay Tony Gonzaga if given a chance?
Alam mo, na-interview na ako ni Tony.
Oh, okay.
Before this brouhaha with that other guy there.
Yes.
About several months before that, I had been interviewed.
Okay. And how was that experience, sir?
Well, it was a very nice interview. It was quite engaging. And who were able to watch it after said they were moved by the conversation we had.
Right. At least, di ba, alam naman natin na hindi bias si Tony Gonzaga. I don't know why I said that. Thank you, sir. Moving on. Ito medyo showbiz question to. I don't know ba't tinanong to, but may nagtanong. If you were to star in your own movie, sinong magdedirect and sino yung artista na mag-play sa'yo?
Oh, wow. Siguro madali lang yung direct. Nandiyan yung anak ko.
Oo, tama, diba? Pag sumagot ka na ibang director, baka magka-issue pa eh.
Pero kung sino yung artista, wow. Hindi ko maiisip kung sino yung naks may kayang mag-play ng
Sir, ito, last question from our Instagram lists of questions. Balik tayo dun sa very end of the last elections. The results came out and nakita nyo na walang nanalo sa slate nyo sa LP. No? So, how did you feel in that moment na nakita nyo walang pumasok sa inyo dun sa senatorials?
Well, you know, as I said when I met with my volunteers after, sabi ko, there are some defeats that are actually victories in themselves. And the fact that, for example, I was able to garner 6.3 million votes, a newbie who had no background in politics, no network, no ground crew and all that, I felt that in itself was a major achievement. By the way, correct ko lang, that slate was not an LP slate, and I myself am not organic. Okay. I'd like the public to know this as well. I'm not a member of the Liberal Party, although they did take me in as a guest candidate in 2019. I'm happy to announce that I am now for the first time in my life, I'm now part of a new young political party. It's called KANP. Katipunan ng Nagkakaisang Pilipino. It's comprised mostly of young people who really want to have a new kind of politics. Tama na yung mga trapo, tama na yung mga political dynasty. Ang gusto namin ay magkaroon ng tunay na politikang pang-Pilipino. And I'm very happy and excited to be a part of this new party.
Right. Thank you for clearing that up, Atty. Chel. And thank you for answering all my questions here this afternoon. Sobrang alam kong busy kayo today. So I will actually let you go. However, if there is one last thing you want to leave my listeners with on this podcast, now is your chance.
First of all, maraming salamat, Chino, sa pagkakataon at sa inyong paanyaya. Ako po si Chel Diokno at yung iba ay kilala ako, hindi dahil ako isang abogado o guro o ama, ang kapagkakilala niyo sa akin ay dahil sa ngipin ko. Kasi tuwing pinag-usapan natin yung issues ng bayan, pinupunan nila yung ngipin ko. Pero alam niyo, okay lang sa akin yon. Pero kung pag-uusapan nila yung ngipin ko, edi dapat pag-usapan din natin yung bungi at bulok sa sistema natin dito sa Pilipinas. Ako naman ay talagang willing na willing magserbisyo, lalong-lalo na pagdating sa hustisya. Dahil ang paniwala ko, dapat may kagat ang hustisya at dapat may ngipin ang batas. Maraming salamat po, Chel Diokno po.